Hello and welcome to the first episode of Computationally Yours, where the conversations begin at computational biology. I'm your host, Dr. Sabah Kadri.
And I am Arshi Arora. Today, as we launch our podcast series, we would like to share a little bit about ourselves and discuss the answers to an interesting task that we assign to each other. So, Sabah, tell us a little bit about yourself and what do you do?
Well, Arshi, I've been in the field of computational biology for more than 10 years now. Bioinformatics looked very different when I was doing my PhD. Big data and genomics was quite new. In terms of my background, it's in computer engineering, and my PhD is in computational biology. Currently, I work as the director of bioinformatics at Lurie Children's Hospital here at Northwestern University in Chicago. In short, I lead the computational work in genetic testing at the hospital. My primary research focus has always been in the field of computational genomics, and one of my true passions is converting bioinformatics challenges into practical solutions for clinical practice. I'm sure we'll talk a lot about these topics at a later time. And Arshi, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Thank you, Sabah. So, I am a biotechnologist turned programmer turned a statistician. You know, a typical day in the life of a computational biologist. I currently work as a research biostatistician at Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center and mostly dabble in cancer genomics. What I'm really curious about is how the sequencing of various biological channels can be interpreted not only at the molecular level, but also at the clinical level. And perhaps with the integration of both the information out there, we can arrive at a more clinically relevant patient subgroup. You know, trying to mine through all that data that is available out there.
That is truly such an evolution of the field, right? And I can't wait to hear more about what you do at one of our later episodes. But you give me an idea. I love the idea of having an episode where we just talk about a typical day in the life of a computational biologist. That would be really interesting. Or not,
Yeah,
I don't know.
maybe now is a good idea to tell our listeners why exactly we started this podcast.
Yeah, exactly. And before we go into the why, let us briefly talk about the what. What is computational biology? In very simple terms, it is a combination of computer science, mathematics and statistics, and biology to answer fundamental questions in the life sciences. As Arshi mentioned, we're going to talk about an assignment in our next segment, so we'll delve more into this. One of the major themes in computational biology is the extraction of information from data. And with the era of big data that we're currently living in, this field has significantly evolved. And when we talk about biology, it could be anything from genomics, which is my specialty and yours too, Arshi, to neuroscience, to systems biology, drug development, clinical trials. I mean, this field is immense and there are so many applications that we can talk about. But now let's come to the why. To put simply, we both feel very strongly about making our fields more accessible. We live in times where science, especially data science, has become a huge part of our daily lives without us knowing about it sometimes. I think it would be great to have a place for us to discuss and make the branches of computational biology that we so know and love, especially pertaining to the biomedical applications, accessible to everyone. And I think we have a great plan on how to do this for our listeners.
Indeed, that's absolutely right. We plan to uncover together old and new realms of computational biology, spanning across bioinformatics, diagnostic testing, biostatistics, and so much more. We will have scientists and researchers as guests also, and we will also cover interesting journal articles from time to time.
And that brings us to our main segment for today, the assignment. In true scientific style, we had an assignment for each other today. We wanted to research the origins of the field of computational biology. We had not discussed this before the podcast, so I'm very interested to see whether we found the exact same papers on it or whether we found something different. Either way, we will make the citations for the papers that we used for this research available on our website. The details will be in the description of the podcast. Arshi, why don't you get us started with what you found?
All right. So there is just so much to talk about here. I would like to tell you that the first time when I even heard the word computational biology was actually as a name of a book chapter in one of the courses I had taken in my undergrad. And who would have thought that I would end up pursuing my master's in computational biology? And I've been in this field for 10 years now. So, not sure if I can cover everything, but I have a spiel in mind, if you don't mind.
No, of course. Let's get started. Archie, I must tell you one thing. I really love history, so this was such a dream assignment. But go on. What did you find?
Yes, sometimes reading about the advancement of the field is also very interesting, but going back to the history and actually see how it started can also tell us a lot about it. May it be a cell or whole ecosystems, computational biology has revolutionized the way we look at living systems at all scales. So, in 1953, when the double helix structure of DNA was discovered, to the burst of string matching algorithms to aid sequencing pioneered by Michael Waterman and David Sankoff, one of the leaders shaping the field around that time, data and biology were just getting started. In fact, as I was researching this and I was trying to see how did computer science and biology started coming as co-actors on the stage of science, looks like using computer science to answer biological questions actually goes all the way back to Turing during 1950s. Yep, you can trace it all back to Turing. So I read this paper and I'm going to cite it in our website and a description. Turing in 1950s used open quote, a trailblazing stored machine, end quote. Turing used this machine to model biological growths in systems such as the Fibonacci patterns in fir cones. Isn't this science at its best?
That is so cool, Arshi. What year was this?
So this is somewhere around the 1950s. But now tell me, did you find something else? Let's compare some notes here now.
So I must say I found a little bit more, but more after Turing. So that was very interesting for me to hear from you. I think the development of high-speed digital computers, of course, not as high-speed as today, but high-speed digital computers did start from weapons research programs during the Second World War, which is the era with Alan Turing as well. But the field of computational biology evolved more so once the computers started becoming available to academic biologists, which did not happen until the early 1960s. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, I would think so. I'm sure the time of where Turing was actually working, it was still restricted to laboratories and maybe not, started branching into more biological labs and etc. That absolutely makes sense.
Yeah, actually, one of the things I found was that there were some surveys conducted at the beginning of that decade, and 15% of colleges and universities in the United States had at least one computer on campus in this era.
I think that's a little hard look at where we have come so far, right?
Exactly. I mean, the very first high-level programming language used at that point was developed by IBM in 1957, and that was, do you know what that was?
Ah, I don't know. Should I make an educated guess? Or
Yes, why don't you?
I think it might be Fortran.
You are exactly right. It was Fortran, and it was introduced by IBM in 1957. And a lot of these initial computational algorithms written on these computers was all in Fortran.
Wow, that's a lot of information coming straight from the 1960s, Sabah. Do you want to tell us more about that era? Because I am straight away going to jump to 2000s if you don't mind. So, but I'm going to ask you if you have anything else between the 1960s and 2000s to share with us.
Yeah, I did have something to talk about. So I have to admit, when I first started working on this assignment, I didn't really know the true origins of computational biology. So it was very interesting for me to read about a lot of these studies. One of the things that struck me is that my assumption when we started this was that probably the origins of computational biology started with DNA, DNA sequence. But I was surprised to learn that there were a lot of technical hurdles in sequencing DNA, and actually, true DNA sequencing didn't start until the 1980s. It was actually proteins, and it was the sequencing of proteins that led to the evolution of this field. In fact, the very first database for molecular biology was of amino acid sequences. It was called the Atlas of Protein Sequence and Structure.
Wow, who would have thought that it actually started from proteins and not from DNA?
So it was interesting. There were a lot of advancements in semi-automation of sequences, of protein sequences. People started doing a lot of studies on the sequence similarities and phylogenetics. In fact, there was a very interesting paper I found, which I will share on our website, called The Construction of Phylogenetic Trees. But I'm not going to go into that too much right now. Of course, I'm really oversimplifying this history. It is so rich and there were so many eminent researchers that contributed to it. But I wouldn't want to end this section of our assignment without mentioning the Needleman-Wunsch algorithm, which was to study the similarities in amino acid sequences of two proteins, although you can also use it for DNA. And I specifically feel very special talking about it because it was the very first method that I learned in my class of Introduction to Computational Biology and made me very nostalgic talking about it, actually. And Arshi, you know what? It was one of the first applications of dynamic programming to compare biological sequences.
I remember dynamic programming. Oh, wow. Do you want to tell our listeners what is dynamic programming really?
Oh, right. Of course. So dynamic programming is actually a method of solving a larger complex problem by breaking it down into a collection of smaller, simpler problems and then solving each of those and storing them in some kind of structure. So I remember building these matrices in class for this Needleman, Wunsch, and Smith-Waterman. But anyway, I digress. I think that's all the history that I had from the 1960s all the way until 1970 when this algorithm came up. Arshi, do you want to take us into the next era of how the field then ended up evolving?
Yeah, as I said, again, I would like to remind our listeners, this is such an immense field. And I think I just want to end this by mentioning the Human Genome Project. So we all know that after that 13-year-long Herculean task of mapping the human genome, I think it was clear that these tiny cells contain a whole lot of information that might have surpassed the memory of supercomputers maybe at that time. But as the field of computational biology is evolving, we are going to see an increase in the understanding of biology alongside an equally, if not more, evolution of computer science too. May it be hardware, algorithms, and other sequencing inventions that are actually still opening up new avenues of scientific discovery. This is the interdisciplinary sciences at its best again.
We live in such an interesting era, and even from the time that the Human Genome Project, the final draft was available, 2003, the past 17 years have been absolutely revolutionary in the field, and there are so many subfields that have now been developed and would be very interesting for us to talk about as well. So before we reach the end of our episode, I wanted to share a fun fact that I came across while doing all this research. So Arshi, if I may, was that the very first protein that was ever sequenced, and I found out that it was in 1945 to 1955, it was the protein insulin, which was 51 amino acids in length, and it was sequenced by Frederick Sanger and his colleagues at Cambridge University, for which he even got the 1958 Nobel Prize in chemistry.
Oh, wow, that is very cool.
All right, listeners, that is the end of our very first episode. Do send us an email with questions and feedback. Our email address will be in the description below. It is computationallyyours@gmail.com. Also, find us on Twitter. Do follow us. Send us a message or email us if you would like to collaborate with us on future episodes. We will also be putting out a video version of this podcast, which will be a little bit delayed, but it will be on our YouTube channel. Details below again. And please do subscribe to us and come back next week to listen to our next episode. Until next time,
this is Computationally Yours.